Washington State, my home state, they are launching a race-based home loan program. White folks need not apply. Let's get into it. Here we go. So this program that came out, I think like July 24th, we're going to look at the program, but let's keep in mind that last couple of weeks, we've had a couple of different big housing loan grant, down payment assistance programs, one in California and one in Oregon that we've been talking about. We did podcasts on those. The first one, first-time home buyers in Oregon get $30,000 grants. Basically, it's forgiven. And you got to pay it back through when you either go to sell or refinance. But American citizens aren't eligible. Yeah. No can do, can't help you out. Yeah. The newcomers, we got to work on the newcomers. The illegals, oh yeah, all day long. Citizens, your taxpayers' dollars are funding this program, but you yourself are not eligible. So that's Oregon. That was an interesting one. The California Senate passes bill to give home loan down payments to illegal immigrants. That was up to $150,000 towards just your down payment, or 20%, whichever one comes first. These are all working on ways to basically get illegal immigrants into housing, and they are bypassing the existing citizenry of these states and cities. And now Washington is next. So what does this look like? The Covenant Home Ownership Program, this is the Washington State one, provides down payment and closing cost assistance for first-time home buyers in the form of a loan secondary to their primary mortgage loan. So it's a second mortgage. The loan has a 0% interest rate. It's paid back on the sale or refinancing of the home. Okay, so they got to qualify for the first, but it sounds like since 0% interest rate, they don't have to qualify for any payments. They don't have to have income to cover the second. So that's a huge up. That's a huge up. Maybe they don't have enough for conventional, 20% down first mortgage. And most folks don't. You know what I mean? Just the amount of money, $900,000 home isn't that much in Washington State anymore. You need $180,000, 20% down. If you don't have that, then you're looking at, less than more of not a hard money loan, but you're going to have mortgage insurance and you're going to have a bunch of other expenses, and they're just more expensive because the risk to the lender is higher because you got less equity into the thing right off the bat, right? So let's skip down to who is eligible for this program. You got to have a household income at or below 100% of the area median income. Okay. All right. So you're making not very much money. First, you got to be a first-time home buyer. And a first-time home buyer, according to this program, can be somebody who hasn't owned a home in the last 3 years. There's a bunch of other criteria. So they're really trying to get people to, they've kind of thought it out, and they're trying to get as many people in, but just not white people. No. And outside of a very small group of folks, we'll continue reading. So it's got to be, you got to have the income, got to be a first-time home buyer. You have to be the home buyer or a parent/grandparent, great-grandparent. Your parent, great-grandparent, great-grandparent lived in Washington State before April of 1968. Tell me that doesn't just sound super random. Well, it's not. There's a reason for it. All right. So income, first-time home buyer, or parent, grandparent, great-grandparent lived in Washington State prior to April of 68. I was born in November of 68, and the April of 68 was, that was the Fair Housing Act. April 68, the passage of the Fair Housing Act made racial discrimination in housing illegal. Okay, so we got that. And the person who lived in Washington before April of 1968, this is the kicker, has got to be, this is a drop dead. There's no, you can't dick around on this part. Black, they got to be Black, Hispanic, Native American, Alaskan Native, Native Hawaiian, or other Pacific Islander, Korean, or Asian Indian. Okay? So no white people, no other groups of people in there. You gotta, I mean, that's a pretty, you throw that out there with all this other stuff. I mean, how are people going to prove this? Hey, my dad lived here in 67. What? proof would you have at this point in time that's a thing? I mean, we didn't have the internet back then. What do you have? A high school yearbook? Yeah, I went to that school. I mean, how are you going to do that? I don't know. What's the criteria there? I don't know. This is a bunch of virtue signaling people in my home state of Washington that can't get out of the way of their own shadow. You know what I mean? Just, this is terrible. What's going on here? We better narrowly racially discriminate. They're doing the exact same thing, just in reverse. It's not like we're going to prevent them from buying, but we're only going to enable this group over here based on race to buy homes, which is racist. Yeah, it's racist. You exclude groups? That's racism right there. A person who lived in Washington before April 1968 is Black, Hispanic, Native American, Alaskan Native, Native Hawaiian, or other Pacific Islander, Korean, or Asian Indian. All right. There you go. So there's that. But I mean, they've thrown in the prior to April of 68. I mean, it's so ridiculous, right? It's so ridiculous. These people can already apply. There's probably a bunch of grants out there already for these folks to apply. The real kicker is this only works if these folks are ready to buy a home. If they don't have the income part down, and guess what? Even with a huge down payment, most folks are not going to be able to afford a mortgage. That's why they're stuck in apartments. And even apartments have become wildly expensive now. So most folks are just trying to survive. This is another virtue signal thing from the state of Washington, which we do a lot of. Granted, we do a ton of. Every now and then, these state home ownership programs come up, and they're a great way if you qualify to get in. But most folks aren't going to qualify based on, even the criteria that you got to have decent credit. You got to have a history of employment. You can't have any bankruptcies recently, typically, no short sales, none of that stuff. And then you've got all this other layers of required, you got to be a certain race. I mean, that is just straight up racist, but it's okay because it's virtue signaling racism. So that seems to be a thing, and that seems to be okay because then you're supporting said races that were impacted in the prior times. So let's get back to this. So the Covenant of Homeownership Act acknowledges the state government's role as both an active and passive participant in generations of discriminatory policies and practices that created barriers to credit and home ownership for historically marginalized communities in Washington, and that these discriminatory actions continue to impact these communities today. You know what? I've been in real estate a long, long time. I started in the mid-'80s working in the office, and I haven't seen a ton of examples of racism in real estate. If somebody has a down payment, there's going to be some mortgage guy out there who's going to figure out how to get them a loan because he gets paid on commission. Couldn't give a crap what their race is. Know what I mean? Dollar's a dollar. If you're dialing for dollars and you're hustling and you're trying to put mortgages together, don't care if he's a Martian from, Mars, as long as he qualifies, right? Get that guy a loan. Want to get paid. And real estate agents, the same thing. Oh, yeah. You can afford it? Great. You've got a pre-approval letter. You've gone through underwriting process. Hey, I'll show you homes. You betcha. Could care less, what race they are. I mean, and I know that sounds flippant, but that's been the majority of my experience here. Now, what I would say is that just based on numbers here in the Pacific Northwest, oftentimes Black community comprises less than 10% of the population. So you see way fewer examples of home ownership by what has been historically marginalized communities. But oftentimes that correlates with percentage of the population. If they're somewhere between 7 and 15% of the population, they're not going to be buying a huge number of homes. It's just not what's going on. Instead, we've had massive surges of the Chinese population and Indian population from India, because here in the Pacific Northwest, you've got a lot of those those groups working at Microsoft, working at Amazon, working at wherever, Zillow, because they just do. Here on the East Side, that's what the East Side, Bellevue basically comprises of now. And so those are the folks that are buying homes here. And so, they've got the income, they've got the down payment, they've got the credit. They're working towards making those decisions. All right. That's who's buying homes. So not to say that these first-time home buyer programs don't work and don't really do what they need to do. But oftentimes when I'm looking at these numbers, it doesn't really help my first-time home buyer because they don't make enough money and they truly don't have enough for the down payment. And even with down payment assistance, they're not going to get there. And their credit is oftentimes just trashed because they haven't paid attention and they haven't made it a priority in their life to pay their bills on time. So you can have somebody work with them for credit there, but oftentimes I see first-time home buyers, it's going to take a while for them to get their, get all their criteria, get their credit up, get their income squared away, be able to explain absences in the past. Yeah, I got laid off and I just hung out for 6 months. Well, lenders don't really want to see that. You know what I mean? They want to see that, hey, you've had a job and you can hold a job because that job is what's going to help you over the next 30 years pay us back this big wad of change that we're going to lend you. So first-time home buyers who take advantage of the program are granted down payment and closing costs in the form of a loan with 0% interest. The loan's due and the buyer sells or refinances. Individuals are encouraged to use the program if they have deep roots in the state. Defined as being related to somebody for April of 68. The covenant program's initial eligibility criteria are intentionally narrowly tailored. All right. So we have intentionally and narrowly racially profiled this program. So it's narrow racism is what you've got going on. While many racial, ethnic, and religious groups in Washington were subject to unjust and egregious housing discrimination, the Covenant program considers not only this history, but also its current impacts. Why aren't we helping just everybody get a house? Why aren't we doing that? Just, hey, if you've got the income and if you are a minority, great, we'll help you out. But also, if you're white, yeah, we'll help you out too. I feel like we've gone the opposite direction and people aren't thinking it through. And I can see what they're doing. They're trying to level the playing field, but then you're literally not leveling the playing field if you're excluding others from taking advantage who've maybe got the credit or whatever, because of the color of their skin. Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough sell, right? The groups eligible for the program, which launched on July 1st, are determined based on their home ownership rates compared to white people. So again, based on the color of their skin, their race, racism. Some groups, such as the Jewish community, do not have enough readily available data to justify a history of housing discrimination, it claims. All right. I don't think are we going down the whole Jewish thing? Are we questioning whether they've been discriminated from getting homes? I don't really hear that as a big thing. I typically hear it from the BIPOC community. And you know what? Okay. Agreed. So, that has happened in the past, but to discriminate right now today to try and make up for some of this old stuff, I'm a no-go on that. Help folks out that want to help themselves. Help me, help you, help me, help you. You know that drill? So the Covenant Homeownership Act is one small effort to remedy past and ongoing discrimination. All right. It's a minor version of reparations. Like in California, people that were never slaves are going to be paying with their taxpayers' dollars to people that were never slaves in a state that slavery was never a thing. The whole thing is it's one more social experiment for virtue signaling. And it's like the sanctuary city. Oh yeah, we're a sanctuary city until we're not, until we figure it out. Good Lord, it's expensive to feed all these people. So, it's one small effort to remedy past ongoing discrimination and its impacts on access to credit and home ownership, yada, yada. It does not represent a formal reparations effort. Okay, but it kind of does, right? This is Washington State. We got a lot of virtue signaling going on here. I mean, And you are literally setting up a program based on racism, and then you say, oh, but it's reparations. Folks are just going to kind of shake their head and go, what? What are you talking about? Prior to 68. I mean, yeah, okay, all right. Yeah, I want to see how you're going to have people prove this. You know what I mean? Well, my great-grandpa, he lived here. Oh, he said he did. You know, he told us he did. Yeah, my mom knows. My mom heard him say that. Do you have some proof? Do you have some utility statements from my great-grandpa in 1962? Oh, yeah. Let me grab them here. I've been carrying those around in my back pocket here. Let me get those for you. Oh, here you go. Shenanigans, I say. These are the shenanigans that surround me in Washington State and are annoying. But, you know, they come from a place where they think that they're trying to help, but they're really not helping, because what they do is they bring a spotlight to, hey, what color's your skin? Hey, what color is my skin? When in fact, it should be, if you've got what it takes to buy a home in today's market, go buy that home. And if you need some help, here's the programs that are out there available to everybody. Because that's what gets rid of racism, right? Treating everybody equally, not trying to figure out how can, all right, we had reparations in the past, or we have situations that require reparations, and this is what we're doing we're literally going to exclude some races to make up for the racism. Okay. All right. Yeah. I'm sure they'll reverse course on this program. They'll throw in, yeah, you know what? If you're a white person between a median weight of 142 to 165 pounds with a height of between 5'8" and 6'1.5", you will apply. You will qualify. Okay. Yeah. That's it for me on this one. Thanks so much for being here. I'll catch up with you on the next segment. Love to have you subscribe, do all that good stuff, and I'll see you then. Bye for now.